course, in service, there is this enormous amount of interactions between service agents and customers through whichever channel, right? Whether that's phone, whether that's email, app, all these different channels that are connected to omni-channel in Service Cloud. But always it comes down to question and answer. And if there ever was one technology that is putting the whole question and answer dialogue on its head, it is this generative AI technologies. It's good to be back again. So my name is Reinier, and I'm a Director of Product Management at Salesforce, responsible for Einstein product lines. So that means that on a daily basis, I work with our development teams in the United States to build the next version of Salesforce, specifically everything around Einstein and Einstein GPT. I'm super passionate about AI. I've worked in AI all my life. I did research in AI, and now I'm at Salesforce building these exciting products.
Thank you. And you as well, welcome. My name is Luuk Martens. I'm the Practice Manager, Data Analytics and AI. For the past 10 years, I've been in digital consulting and actually always in the field of data, from master data management to business intelligence to data science and AI. And also recently, around November, December, amazed by what GPT can do and what it has to offer, and especially on the opportunities for our client side. On a daily business, on a daily task, I yeah. On a daily, what do you call it?
On a daily basis.
On a daily basis, yeah. On a daily basis, I lead a team of consultants, and I help our clients in deciding on how to scope their projects, what kind of use cases they can do for, and also obviously to get to the business case and deliver the value for our customers. We've been talking before already about our GPT, so we'll not do a full introduction, but maybe it's good to sort of ground it again a bit on, what is GPT for everybody who doesn't know yet.
Do you think that your job has changed because of GPT? Maybe that's a good way to introduce it.
Okay, good way to introduce it, definitely. So at least at Nextview, from the moment it was released, I've already been talking to our board members as well, because not only my job, but actually everybody's job in this organization has changed. And I think all industries and customers that we have will feel the change as well. I think if I would summarize it, it's a large language model, GPT, focused on generating texts. And I think in professional life, we'll see, at least now already, use cases around brainstorming, around making rough drafts of texts, being able to very fast generate a lot of content, and in a manner that almost looks like it's human. And I would always also mention that it's not just generating a complete perfect answer, but that it's more suggesting a draft version that as a human you still want to adjust, still want to tweak. We talked about sales, the sales domain in the past episode. Maybe it's good to talk about service, one of the key domains for CRM, the key domains for Sales Cloud as well, for Salesforce as well. Like, how do you see Einstein GPT in the context of Service Cloud?
Yeah, it's very prominent in service as well. Of course, in service, there is this enormous amount of interactions between service agents and customers through whichever channel, right? Whether that's phone, whether that's email, app, all these different channels that are connected to omni-channel in Service Cloud. But always it comes down to question and answer. And if there ever was one technology that is putting the whole question and answer dialogue on its head, it is this generative AI technology specific to text, as we have come to know it since November last year. So in all those interactions, we see a role for Einstein GPT, where, for example, if a customer has an inquiry or a concern, the service agent that's handling that concern already sees a suggested reply, which is not coming out of a library of possible existing replies. No, it's literally generated on the spot, out of thin air, I would almost say, and displayed to the agent, so that agent can then either take it directly and send it to that customer, or edit it and send it in an edited form, because indeed it may be that a small edit is still needed. But it's not just about these dialogues that the agent is having. It's also in other areas, because this technology, this large language technology, has many more capabilities. It can also provide a lot of good summaries, for example. So if a case closes, then creating a summary out of that case so that later on models can pick up that summary again to learn from how it was handled can also be done by Einstein GPT. You have had this long case, you've had the dialogue with the customer, and all the information that was collected can then be summarized by Einstein GPT in a natural language summary to be stored in the platform, perhaps even as knowledge article. The creation of knowledge articles. Again, we are back to content creation, content generation. So why not have Einstein GPT generate these new knowledge articles for you? So all these textual use cases in the Service Cloud, I believe, are great areas of impact where we can see Einstein GPT play a role.
That's super interesting. I think the example that you use is one that we tackled quite early on with the customer already there, where we had the situation that the cases are that complex that it actually takes multiple days, sometimes multiple weeks to solve and to help their customer to solve the case. And that happens also with the transition of giving the case to a different agent, because often these call centers are changing people. There's of course different rosters, people are on holiday, and still you want to help the client, right, despite of that. So there's this whole case team around it that sometimes you need to introduce someone new. Like having like a case summary of that complex, that was one of the first things we tried. Like, can GPT, obviously we did it in a consent way from the client, can GPT pick up like the essence of this case? What's the problem? What's the proposed solution? Why isn't it solved yet? And it picked up quite easily with just limited information. It picked it up already and really onboarded a new agent quickly to the case. So that's an interesting use case that we actually see as well.
And by the way, if I may add, that is also definitely a use case. So I'm happy that you mentioned it, that you have already built up some experience around that with your customer. I think that's very clever. I think you exactly took the right use case here. And why am I saying that? Because it's one of those use cases where as a company you can already start to develop some experience with this technology without having to need to specify the model very strongly to your domain. Because it is, after all, a summary of what is already there in the entire case record. And I wouldn't say that you can just use the entire off-the-shelf model, but it's a fairly generic use case to provide a summary of all that data, super valuable. So it's a very good step to get introduced as a company to this new generative technology before going into the more tailor-made and customized use cases where you need to create brand new content that should follow the rules of your particular business and domain.
And I think that's what I'm also seeing and hearing for at least the companies that are like on the edge of innovation, right? Einstein GPT is not generally available yet. It's in a closed pilot phase at the moment. We didn't have access to it, but we actually leveraged the OpenAI in a closed format. It needed some human copy pasting in between, but at least we were experimenting and sort of showing the power and also showing the building up momentum and understanding at actually different clients as well, to see what power it has. So it's not there yet completely to use, but it's like the first steps that we took, and I think this was already like January or so that we started playing around with this.
Yeah, and I'm glad to say that in the service domain we are progressing very rapidly with the release of these use cases. So across all the clouds at the moment, probably service is one of the clouds where we will see generally available technology the soonest. Of course, I have to be careful here about committing release timeline.
Of course.
You know how we do that at Salesforce.
We'll put the forward-looking statement in the screen.
I'm sure you will. And read it out loud for the listeners who are not seeing the screen. Right?
Of course.
But truth be told, on the service side, we will progress very rapidly on this domain, and customers can expect technology there very, very soon.
Yeah, and how about, so one of the features that have been already in the service platform for quite some time and already carrying the name Einstein as well, the Einstein bot, it's currently also a way to, in an almost if this then that way, help and address and deflect cases early in the process. How do you see the combination of these large language model with Einstein bot?
Yeah, so I think the current Einstein bots are a combination indeed of these roles and of dialogue trees and predefined dialogue structures, and already, of course, artificial intelligence, but different from the large language models that we are seeing now, right? The type of artificial intelligence that we see today in those bots is, for example, around entity extraction. What is this question about? Is it about topic A, then we move this direction of the dialogue. If it's about topic B, then we move in that direction of the dialogue. So what I see is that part of this tree structure of the bots will probably continue to exist. There will be a kind of overlaying rule framework, but inside those dialogue structures and dialogue frameworks, we can start to be much more flexible in the generation of replies, because we don't need to tap them anymore from a library of possible replies. They don't need to be hard-coded into those structures anymore. We can generate them on the spot. And also in simply understanding what the customer means and deciding whether we move left or right. So I think it's going to be still a combination of those different frameworks, but of course the artificial intelligence part of those bots is going to be supercharged.
So this ties into what you mentioned earlier in our previous episode, right? Where it's not just the model itself in isolation, but it's actually the mechanism, the platform to combine all those different moments and to sort of know when to use which functions, which features, with sometimes a large language model, but sometimes a smaller, niche, specialized model, and sometimes even just something that maybe have existed for quite some time already.
Exactly, which is why it's so exciting that we are bringing this technology on the Salesforce platform, where so much other technological components already exist. Think about all the possibilities if we start to combine this generative technology with something as powerful as Flow, for example. The use cases that you can address with this technology aren't just the use cases that we will release as out-of-the-box features. And I think there is a great role also for Nextview to play. Michaela already mentioned that in her daily role, she's helping customers to define requirements and to set up the right project scope. Many of those use cases are also for you to ideate upon and to think outside of the box and to, we are here in the Design Thinking Center again today, to design what the appropriate solution is for your customers and use the technology that we will also release in a more generic form to solve for other use cases. So therefore, I'm also very eager to hear from your experiences and maybe here Michaela can chip in to also understand what kind of customer problems you think that this technology can solve for that maybe we are not releasing just yet as out-of-the-box features.
I think if I look at how we approach our CRM projects, right, and our implementations, and the same goes for our analytical and AI projects, is that we do this from a human-centered design. So we really take the end user as a starting point. We bring in people from different departments together, from different backgrounds together, to get this holistic view, this diverse view of what actually happening, of the context. We call that creating the context. We do that in the Design Thinking Center through workshops. What we always see is that by mapping out the day in the life of an end user, or where we mapping out a customer journey or an employee journey, we identify pain points that are sometimes ignored by or not seen by the people who gave us the assignment. So sometimes we actually get an assignment and we actually end up doing something much more important that we actually found in that original question. So the question behind the question, or the real problem we're trying to solve, or finding a way how we're not just solving a problem, but we're also ensuring adoption of the new situation. And I think this is where, especially with GPT, adoption and the trust, and doing it in a safe environment, but also preparing people and creating awareness, there's still a lot of guidance that we need to give also to our customers. We cannot expect them to follow the AI news like we do, to find all those open best practices. And from that point of view, it's not much difference from our CRM implementations. And that's also what I love about the Salesforce point of view. So in the past, you basically had a a buy or build scenario as a company, right? You either buy a product that's completely finished or you build it yourself, and then you had the whole customize sort of in between. That was usually a drama because it would block all future releases of your CRM. And when Salesforce came in, they offered basically the fourth option, not to just develop it yourself, not just to customize something existing, but to configure it. And that's what I'm really looking forward to also in this year. And I sort of hear it what your point of view is there as well. And that's what we see in CRM as well. Yes, you can buy Sales Cloud. There's so much Service Cloud, and there's so much standard functionality that you can leverage, but you still need room to adjust it to your company, to your specifics, to your industry, to your body of knowledge, to your niche, to your end users, to your processes. There's so much additional context where Salesforce allows you to in the implementation still tweak it without breaking things for the future. That's where we're looking forward to this as well. Having your own large language models or small language models, I don't know if that's going to be a term or not, but where you actually have your own language models trained in your environment, tweaked to your environment that you can trust and you can build on.
Right, yeah, and definitely in the creation of Einstein GPT, we are following that very same paradigm of being able to take what is there and make it your own. In fact, we believe that the intelligent customer company is a combination of CRM, data, and AI. These are the three key ingredients that throughout the CRM portfolio are important to have in place. CRM you talked about, it's the ability to customize your CRM, whether it's sales, service, or any of the other products to your own need. But then also indeed to leverage the data that you have, the data that you have in your customer 360 to make sure that those large language models aren't generic, but are specific to your situation, to your domain, to your industry, and even to your customers. And then infuse the AI on top of that.
One question that we heard quite a lot already, especially when you talk about service and you talk about customer data. What about GDPR? Is there anything maybe you can share about how Einstein GPT, how you handle it, how as a Salesforce you ensure that these language models are actually building on the current legal structures as well?
Of course, we have to, and our customers have to. GDPR is not optional. It's legislation that we have to follow. And recently we saw again a large technological company being fined for breaking these rules. And therefore also in the creation of Einstein GPT, we are upholding the principles of GDPR, meaning that PII data will simply not leave the platform. It will not be fed into the models, not as a prompt, not to be trained with. So everything that you know around trust and the compliance that the Salesforce platform has to those regulations, whether that is in Europe, whether it's in the United States, or anywhere else in the world, those same principles will be respected and upheld with Einstein GPT.
That's really powerful to hear. That's like the number one, maybe not the number one concern, because the first one is the business case, but keeping track of your complying to these rules, as you said, it's not an option. It's a must. We're happy to hear that's connected, and that means that basically the individual in your Salesforce, so the place where you already have the GDPR, where you can keep track of your GDPR related fields, that's basically going to be your control mechanism also for Einstein GPT.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really nice. That's I didn't know that yet actually. Good to hear. So let's see. Is there any like service topic that we still need to handle?
I think it's maybe interesting to talk a bit about marketing, and also maybe because we have spoken so much about text, maybe also the multimodality of generative AI.
Okay. We've been talking about sales, we've been talking about service. Obviously the other big domain for Salesforce is the marketing department. Can you tell us a bit about Einstein GPT for marketing?
Absolutely. And before I do so, maybe it's interesting to take a moment to reflect on the concept of generative AI. Right? It's generative artificial intelligence. And actually, if you think about it, today and also in our previous exchange, we have spoken primarily about text. But generative AI is much wider than that. What's interesting actually is that people immediately think about text with generative AI. More specifically, they think about ChatGPT. You can go into Google, by the way, and see the trends for certain keywords. And it's fascinating to see that more people are searching for ChatGPT than there are people searching for AI. Nowadays, people see ChatGPT as that smart thing that you do with a computer, much like people see a jacuzzi for a bathtub with bubbles. But in the end, it remains a brand name that starts to signify this concept. Either way, on the generative AI side, there's much more than just text, and of course there's more than ChatGPT.
So, interesting to say, Reinier, so multimodality, you mean also image generation, I assume?
Absolutely. Generative AI is multimodal. It's not just text, it's also image, it's video, it's even voice synthesis. We talked already about programming code, but truth be told, we could even see that as text still. But the image part is, of course, very interesting. Created by entirely different models. Not a large language model, obviously, but different techniques such as diffusion models. And we don't need to unpack here today all the technical ramifications of a diffusion model. But I'm sure that many of the listeners and viewers have played also with systems like Midjourney or DALL-E to create new images.
I think everybody saw the Pope in the fluffy jacket, or the deep fakes of Obama and Trump playing basketball together.
It's fascinating and both scary to see where that is going. But in a marketing context, this is of course very relevant, because marketing is about generating much more than that, more than just text. For example, if you're running a marketing campaign, you want to create this landing page for your marketing campaign. And that requires not just textual input, but a multimodal content. And therefore, these generative technologies in a marketing context will also be able to create imagery and visuals for your marketing campaigns, together with the textual content, the marketing copy that gets written. So Einstein GPT will be able to generate this marketing content for you in a conversational way. You can ask for certain copy to be included in your landing page. And if you want to iterate on this, you can either edit it yourself or ask for a refinement of that copy, together with the creation of these imagery, as I mentioned.
Okay, so speed of developing pages, speed of developing content is going to come to marketing with Einstein GPT.
Absolutely. Speed, as well as entirely new creative avenues that can be explored.
And how about the, like, one part of the marketing parts, obviously also a lot of customer analysis. Do you see any segmenting, or do you see any targeting or personalization aspects to what Einstein GPT will be able to do?
I see a role there again in the way that you reach out to those customers. Like, for example, understanding what tone of voice to use for particular segments of your marketing population, and then drafting messaging in that specific tone of voice, in the correct tone of voice per individual. Where I'm more relying still on what we would say, quote unquote, traditional techniques, is for the clustering and the segmentation itself. As we spoke about last time, to be truly successful in this domain, you will always need a composite of various techniques. And there are just very good clustering techniques, and there are very good segmentation techniques out there. So there I believe that will still have its place, but then how to engage with these segments depends then on, or is actually driven by the generative AI.
What we've been hearing, especially our clients, are in the marketing space, especially the opportunity it gives on mass personalization, right? It gives you, at least in theory, the chance to write a special message or generate a special image specifically to that one particular individual, and therefore creating like an amazingly precise segmentation, the one-on-one marketing that is sometimes talked about. For now, we're not really seeing that work completely successful, and the main thing is that because of the models, they're still, they're not really perfect, and you don't want to risk your reputation of actually delivering bad content to every individual, and you're unable to have that human in the loop for every one of those messages. So you need to get to a certain level of certainty, of trust, of something you can rely on before you actually turn that switch to a really one-on-one marketing opportunity. What we do see is that companies are working with their own imagery on product pages, that they're working with their own photography style, that they're working with trying to personalize images based on what you know about the customer. So for instance, if you sold somebody a table, let's stick to the table example, and you know the color the table has, you know the style the table has, you could and you know that customer is logged into your website and it's actually looking at the right chairs to go along with that. Yeah, you could actually let them pick chairs and then place those chairs immediately in their own table, like in the image, and looking quite realistically. And there are versions of that we're actually experimenting with clients, but also there we're not yet really at the level where you can do it on a one-on-one basis and get 100% correct. And that's what we see also for a lot of marketing strategists, I think, is when are you, and that's a strategical decision, like which kind of accuracy do you want to get to before you're able to use it. And it sounds a lot to what you talk about, Einstein GPT, that it's something that you want to give in the hands of the future users, that you want them to be able to set a threshold from this accuracy onwards. I accept it. Also, everything below it, we're not gonna do that yet. Yeah. And then have that maybe tree setup where it takes a different image, maybe a stock image that you have already, versus that personalized image, so that it actually uses that.
I agree, and this should not be a theoretical question. It should not be a theoretical question what that threshold should be. Do we want accuracy to be 80%, 85%? If you would ask this to a business leader, they would all quote something at least above 95%. But the question is that really needed? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. That should not be a theoretical question. And that's why I'm very passionate about running pilots rather than proof of concepts. I firmly believe in the credo of start small, think big, scale fast. And start small does not mean a proof of concept, because truly nobody is helped by some laboratory exercise. The difference between a proof of concept and a pilot is that a pilot immediately involves some level of end users, whether that's your internal employees or your customers. So in getting started and in developing a sense for what acceptable accuracy we need to have, you can only develop that understanding by getting started. And getting started is never in the lab. It's never in a theoretical exercise. The concept that you want to prove is connection to your customers. And you only prove that with customers. So I would really recommend to start a pilot indeed with a small segment of customers and grow from there quickly.
That sounds like what we love to do as well, also when it comes to prototyping. Right, you don't necessarily, for a pilot as well, have to have all bases covered immediately. You just have to make sure that it's confined and it's controllable, and go from there to go to something that actually, for the long term, also is future-proof built, is completely reliable when it comes to scaling it up.